The sun hung low over the jagged red cliffs of the Arizona Territory like a bloodied coin, casting long shadows that clawed at the parched earth. Elias Thorne, a weathered cowboy whose boots had worn thin from a decade of chasing horizons, spurred his horse harder through the swirling dust devil that had sprung up from nowhere. He wasn't one for omens, but the way the wind howled like a pack of coyotes set his teeth on edge. 38 years old, with a face etched by sun and sorrow, Elias had ridden alone since the war took his brother and the bottle took his faith in most men. He herded cattle for whoever paid in silver, slept under stars that offered no comfort, and believed the only loyalty worth a damn was between a man and his Mustang. But that afternoon, as thunder cracked the sky without rain, he heard it, a child's cry, sharp as a whip's lash, cutting through the gale. He reined in midnight, his black gelding, ears pricking at the sound. It came again, fainter, from a ravine choked with mesquite and creosote bushes. Cursing the heat that blurred his vision, Elias dismounted and slid down the loose shale, his Winchester rifle slung across his back like an old friend's arm. The ravine bottomed out into a nightmare. Two small Apache girls, no more than 8 and 10, huddled against a boulder, their dark braids whipping in the wind. One clutched a tattered blanket, the other a broken doll carved from cottonwood root. Bandits, renegade Comancheros, by the look of the scattered hoofprints and the acrid smoke from a gutted pack mule, had raided their camp, leaving chaos in their wake. The girl's eyes, wide with terror, locked onto Elias like he was the devil himself, pale-skinned and towering in his dusty Stetson. "Easy now," he murmured, hands raised, voice low as a lullaby his ma used to hum. He wasn't Apache. Hell, he wasn't much of anything but a drifter, but he'd seen enough border skirmishes to know fear didn't care for skin color. The younger one whimpered, pointing to a gash on her sister's arm where blood welled dark against copper skin. Elias tore a strip from his bandana, binding the wound with hands that trembled not from fear, but from the ghost of his own sister's screams back in Tennessee, cut down by lead before she could outrun the bluecoats. He scooped them up, one under each arm, their slight weights no heavier than saddlebags, and climbed back to midnight. The horse snorted, sensing the fragility of the cargo, but Elias tied them secure with his lariat, whispering apologies in the girl's tongue, words he'd picked up from trading posts and too many sunsets alone. By dusk, they'd made camp in a sheltered alcove of the cliffs, the wind dying to a whisper as if ashamed of its fury. Elias built a fire from scrub oak, its flames dancing like hesitant spirits. The girls, Cholina, the elder, and little Najoni, watched him warily, sharing a tin of beans and hardtack he'd warmed over the coals. He didn't press for stories. Silence was a language they all spoke fluently. As stars pricked the velvet sky, Cholina's voice broke the quiet, soft and halting in English learned from missionaries. "You, white man, why help? Raiders take our horses. Kill father." Her words hung heavy, laced with the salt of unshed tears. Elias poked at the fire, sparks rising like fleeting prayers. "Reckon I know what it's like to lose kin to the wind," he said, eyes on the flames. "Ain't about color or tribe. It's about being human when the world's gone mad." That night, as the girls slept curled together under his spare blanket, Elias kept watch, rifle across his knees. The desert whispered secrets, owls hooting judgments, distant coyotes laughing at his folly. He'd saved them from the storm and the shadows, but what now? Return them to a village that might spit on his shadow, ride on and let fate sort the rest. Selflessness had never been his strong suit, survival was. Yet staring at their peaceful faces, lit by the dying embers, he felt a crack in the armor around his heart, a sliver of light where resentment had festered since Appomattox. For the first time in years, sleep evaded him not from ghosts, but from a fragile hope he couldn't name. Dawn painted the cliffs in hues of rose and gold, and Elias rose stiff-jointed, brewing coffee strong as regret. The girls stirred, Najoni rubbing sleep from her eyes, her doll clutched like a talisman. They broke camp swiftly, the air humming with unspoken gratitude. Cholina sketched a map in the sand with a stick, a winding trail to their band's hidden spring, far from raider paths. "Mother waits," she said, tracing the lines with care. Elias nodded, memorizing the path, his mind already plotting the safest route. As they mounted, Najoni slipped him a small turquoise bead from her necklace, pressing it into his calloused palm. "For luck, cowboy," she whispered, her smile a sunrise after storm. He pocketed it, throat tight, and they rode out, the girls' laughter tentative birdsong against the vast silence. The trail twisted through canyons where echoes played tricks, and by midday, trouble found them again. Hoofbeats thundered from the ridge above. 5 riders, dust-caked and mean-eyed, the same Comancheros who'd struck first, drawn by the smoke of Elias's fire. Gringo with squaws, one bellowed, leveling a Spencer carbine. Bullets sang past, splintering cactus and ricocheting off stone. Elias wheeled midnight, shoving the girls behind a boulder as he dismounted, rifle barking in reply. He dropped one rider clean, the crack echoing like judgment, but the others closed in, horses foaming, guns blazing. A slug grazed his shoulder, fire blooming hot and wet, but he fought on, thoughts narrowing to the girls' wide eyes peeking from cover. In the chaos, an unexpected ally emerged from the scrub, a lone Apache scout, painted for war, arrowing from the shadows like vengeance incarnate. He felled 2 bandits with bow and blade, silent as death, before vanishing as swiftly as he'd come. The remaining pair fled, cursing the wind. Elias slumped against the rock, blood soaking his shirt, vision blurring. Cholina bound his wound with strips from her own dress, her small hands steady despite the fear in her gaze. "You fight for us," she said, voice cracking. Like brother, Najoni pressed cool mud to his fevered brow, humming a melody that wove through the pain like cool water. As the sun dipped, Elias realized the scout's intervention wasn't chance. The desert had eyes, and kindness rippled outward, unseen. They pressed on through twilight, the girls guiding now, their steps sure on ancestral ground. Elias rode slumped in the saddle, fever whispering doubts. Had he doomed them by drawing blood? Was this selflessness just another fool's errand? But Cholina's tales, spun to distract him, painted a different picture. Stories of Coyote the trickster, who saved the lost by losing himself, of women warriors who bridged worlds with woven baskets of song. In her words, Elias glimpsed his own reflection, not the scarred drifter, but a man capable of mending what war had torn. By moonrise, they crested a rise, and there, in the silvered basin below, lay the Apache camp. Wickiups circled like protective arms, cook fires blowing, the air thick with the scent of fry bread and sage. The village stirred at their approach, warriors melting from shadows, women gathering children close. A murmur rose, then fell silent as an elder woman strode forward, her deerskin dress embroidered with quills that caught the moonlight like stars. This was Atsidi, mother to Cholina and Najoni, her face a map of grief and grace, eyes sharp as obsidian. She enveloped her daughters in an embrace that swallowed sobs, then turned to Elias, who swayed in the saddle, barely upright. No words at first, just a gaze that stripped him bare, seeing the blood, the weariness, the hidden wounds of a soul adrift. "You bring back my hearts," she said finally, in English honed by trade and trial. "The wind carries your name now, white thunder." Warriors helped him down, leading him to a wickiup where a healer awaited with poultices of yucca and whispers of healing chants. That night, as drums throbbed a rhythm older than the cliffs, the camp feasted. Elias, propped on furs, ate sparingly of venison and corn mush, the flavors bursting like forgotten memories. Stories flowed like mezcal, tales of raids repelled, stars that guided the lost. Atsidi sat beside him, her presence a quiet anchor. "My girls speak of your fire, your horse that runs like shadow. But what reward do you seek, cowboy?" "Horses, silver, a warrior's psalm." Elias shook his head, the turquoise bead warm in his pocket. "None, just seein' 'em safe, that's payment enough." She studied him, then nodded, as if weighing his words against the scales of spirits. Dawn of the next day brought the strange reward, unexpected as rain in the monsoonless waste. The camp gathered at the spring's edge, where water bubbled clear from sandstone heart. Atsidi emerged from her wickiup bearing a bundle wrapped in buckskin, tied with sinew. Warriors parted, children hushed, as she knelt before Elias, who stood bandaged but steady, the fever broken by desert magic. "You gave without taking," she said, voice carrying like smoke. "In our way, the giver receives the unseen." She unwrapped the bundle, revealing not gold or gems, but a cradle board, ancient, carved with petroglyphs of thunderbirds and maize maidens, its wood darkened by generations. Nested within lay a tiny infant, swaddled in rabbit fur, eyes blinking at the light like new stars. "My third daughter," Atsidi explained, lifting the child with reverence. "Born in the storm that took her father, she is yours now, by the law of the saved. Raise her in kindness, as you saved mine." Elias recoiled, heart pounding like a war drum. A child, him, the wanderer with no roof, no kin. The camp watched, silent judges. "I can't," he stammered, visions flashing. The bottle's call, the endless trail, a babe crying in empty arms. But Atsidi placed the cradle board in his hands, the weight both feather-light and anchor-heavy. "You already can. The strange reward is not the child, but the life she demands of you. Selflessness is a seed, this is its bloom." As the infant cooed, grasping his finger with fierce grip, realization crashed over him like a canyon flood. All his years of riding alone, nursing grudges against a world that took more than it gave, this was the turn, the profound pivot. The girl wasn't a burden, she was a bridge, from his shadowed past to a future woven with tiny hands and unbreakable bombs. Cheers traced paths down his dust-caked cheeks, unashamed in the circle of strangers turned family. Cholina and Najoni flanked him, their small hands on his arms, while Atsidi chanted a blessing, words blending English and Athabascan into a tapestry of unity. The camp erupted in song, voices rising to the cliffs, a chorus that drowned out old ghosts. Elias named her Aria, Song of the Wind, vowing silently to teach her the trails, the stars, the quiet power of a hand extended in the dark. In the weeks that followed, Elias's world reshaped like clay under rain. He stayed with the band through summer's blaze, learning the weave of baskets that held more than corn, the threads of trust across divides. Warriors taught him the bow, sharing tobacco and tales of battles where mercy turned foes to friends. Atsidi became a quiet mentor, her wisdom a balm to his scars. Kindness is not weakness, white thunder. It is the river that carves stone. Little Arya grew sturdy on goat's milk and Elias's awkward lullabies, her laughter chasing away the nightmares that once plagued his sleep. The girls, Cholina and Najoni, trailed him like shadows, braiding feathers into midnight's mane, teaching him words for the desert's hidden gifts, rain's promise, earth's endurance. But the unexpected turns lingered, testing the soil of his resolve. Whispers spread of Comanchero retaliation, scouts reporting dust plumes on the horizon. One moonless night, as coyotes yipped challenges, riders struck the camp's edge, torches flaring, bullets whining. Elias, Arya strapped to his chest in the cradleboard, fired from cover, his shoulder wound reopening in crimson protest. Cholina, fierce as her namesake's eagle, loosed arrows beside him, while Najoni sheltered babes in the spring's cave. In the melee, Elias faced the bandit leader, a scarred Mexican with eyes like coals, who sneered, "Gringo fool, stealing Apache whelps." The desert claims its own. But as they grappled, Elias saw not enemy, but man, driven by hunger, haunted by losses of his own. In a moment of profound clarity, amid the powder smoke, he spared the blow, offering water from his canteen instead. "Ride out," he growled, "ain't no glory in orphans." The bandit paused, flask trembling in his grip, then nodded, vanishing into the night with his survivors. Word spread like wildfire. The cowboy who fought with lead and mercy. The camp hailed him not as savior, but kin, weaving him a medicine bag with the turquoise bead from Najoni as its heart. Yet Elias knew the true turn lay inward, the realization that selflessness wasn't a solitary ride, but a circle, where one act fed another, rippling to shores unseen. As autumn winds gilded the cottonwoods, Elias prepared to ride. The band gifted him a sturdy mare for Arya, laden with provisions and a map etched on elk hide, paths to safety, alliances with distant pueblos. At sight he clasped his hands at parting, her eyes mirrors of quiet pride. "You came as storm, leave as rain." The reward was never strange. It was you, remade. Cholina and Najoni pressed woven bracelets into his palm, tears mingling with smiles. "Come back, brother," they chorused, voices carrying the weight of forever. Elias rode east with Arya gurgling at the horizon, midnight and the mare in tandem. The trail stretched endless, but no longer lonely, each mile a verse in a song of reclaimed humanity. He thought of the girls safe in their mother's arms, the band stronger for the bridges built. In trading posts and trail towns, his tale wove into legend, the cowboy who saved 2 Apache sisters, only to find his heart returned threefold. But Elias knew the deeper truth, whispered by wind through canyon mouths. Kindness is the strangest reward, for it saves the giver as surely as the given. Years folded like accordions, and Elias settled in Adobe near the Gila River, herding for a rancher who valued his quiet code. Arya grew wild-haired and wise, her laughter echoing Apache chants and cowboy yarns, bridging worlds with every step. She learned to ride before she walked fully, her small hands guiding reins with the surety of stars. Elias watched her chase butterflies through mesquite, heart swelling with a love fierce as thunder, and marveled at the alchemy, from drifter to father, from shadow to hearthfire. One crisp October eve, as leaves swirled like confetti from forgotten fiestas, riders crested the ridge, 3 figures silhouetted against sunset's blaze. Elias stepped onto the porch, shotgun loose in his grip, but recognition dawned like dawn itself. Cholina, now a young woman with warrior's poise, led on a paint pony, her braids adorned with silver. Beside her, Najoni, blooming into grace, carried a basket of harvest bounty. And at their heels, Atside, silver threading her hair but step unbowed, eyes alight with the same obsidian fire. They dismounted in a flurry of embraces, Arya rushing forward with whoops that blended tongues. Over supper of stewed rabbit and cornbread, stories spilled, the band's prosperity, raids turned to truces, anew. Generation learning the cowboy's mercy. Atside's gaze settled on Elias, soft as sage smoke. The circle completes, she said, producing a small pouch. Inside lay a feather from a golden eagle, quill etched with petroglyphs matching Arya's cradleboard. For the girl who carries two worlds, and for you, the man who taught us that humanity's power lies not in taking, but in the hand left open. As stars wheeled overhead, the women sang, Arya joining in halting harmony, songs of rivers that never dry, winds that heal rather than wound. Elias listened, chairs unspoken, feeling the emotional crest. In this act of reunion, compassion's wave crashed, transforming isolation into tapestry. No longer the lone rider, he was woven in, threads of kindness binding Apache heart to cowboy soul. In the quiet after, as fires banked to embers, Elias stepped outside, Arya asleep in his arms. The desert breathed deep, vast and forgiving. He'd begun as a man chasing ghosts through dust, hooked by a cry in the storm. Now, he ended, or began anew, with the realization that selflessness sows fields of unexpected bloom. So the world, particularly those scarred souls in the USA's wide heartland, where divides run deep as canyons, his story whispered, extend the hand, bridge the gap. For in the strange rewards of humanity, a child's grip, a mother's gaze, a song shared under stars, lies the transformative spark. Hope isn't found, it's forged, one compassionate act at a time, leaving us all a little less alone, a little more whole.